this guy then eventually is really mad at having to see my face on his exercise equipment. So then he starts tweeting all this like mean stuff about how he like, this is horrible that he has to see my face on the exercise equipment all the time and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm really sorry. It actually was only supposed to be a month. Like, can I send you a free CD? And then he was, but that was probably the weirdest experience where it's like, went from like, this is so great to like, get off my exercise equipment.
Welcome to another episode of Tobin Tonight. We're here with Audriix. Did I say that correctly?
You did. The X is silent, just Audriix.
Perfect. So tell me a little bit about, I guess, because I've done a little bit of research. As I tell people, this is like a Tinder date where both parties show up. And if I knew everything about you, I might not be here. Because that would be like, if you know what you're getting into on a Tinder date, you're like, man, like, why am I here? Like, I know everything about you. There's nothing you're going to tell me that I don't already know. So I want to ask you first, you grew up in Northern California, correct?
Yep, right in Silicon Valley, Bay Area.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that, because I'm from Canada and I'm on the Newfoundland side. So I'm on like my own little rock island here. And I'm guessing like you see the commercials for California, you see Arnold Schwarzenegger in them going like, we'll be back. And I'm just like, I want to go, but I want to know from someone who's been there, what is it like?
Oh, I love California. So yeah, I mean, grew up in the Bay Area. I now spend a lot of time still in the Bay Area and a lot of time in LA. California is great. I was just saying to my friend earlier today, we've had the, in my opinion, best weather of all time this summer. It's high 70s, low 80s, sunny every day, dark at 9 o'clock. It's great. Doesn't ever get too cold. It's pretty nice place. I like California, and Silicon Valley in particular. It's a very sort of tech entrepreneurial area. I grew up really close to Stanford University, which is fun. I went there as well, but California's great. It's warm.
Yeah. I feel like when you said like, you know, we're having the best weather yet, I'm like, can you really have bad weather in California though?
I mean, sometimes in the winter it gets a little cold. I like the summer. I like very warm days. So it gets cold, but I think we need the rain. We're in a drought. So
yeah.
I don't like the rain. It doesn't rain much. I know it should rain more because this drought is not good, but it's nice to be sunny. I like it.
Yeah. Because from my understanding of like California, obviously, like I grew up watching a whole like bunch of 90s sitcoms. So it's like watching like, when you get older, you realize even if they say they're based in Philly or based in like Chicago, no, it's all pretty much filmed in LA.
Yep.
Right? LA or New York. And I remember watching Full House, where I think it's Jesse is like taking, I believe it's Rebecca, but it's like getting her to go outside for a Christmas episode. And it's like, I hate it. It's just like, I like California, but I hate that you don't have snow. And then he arranges for it to all have snow. And I was just like, as a kid, I'm like, right, you're telling me you don't get snow there? But like, yeah, there's certain parts of the States that's like, they don't know. What is snow? I'm just like, how do you not?
No snow and not much rain. Yeah. LA is even hot. LA is like hot. The Bay Area is a handful of degrees colder than LA. So sometimes in the summer, I think the Bay Area is a little bit better because LA gets really, really hot. But I also love LA and spend a lot of time there as well. Yeah.
Nice. Like now in the Bay Area, have you ever gone to see like a Golden State Warriors game?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, really? Oh, wow. Like,
yeah.
Are you a big NBA fan, or is it just because they're in the area you went to see them?
I haven't gone. I'm more of I grew up actually watching the Stanford basketball game. So I'm more of a college basketball fan. But I've gone to a couple Warriors games just because friends invited me.
Yeah.
Which are really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, no, I forget that side of things too, because I know when we have obviously like the March Madness, like we get to see it up here, but like, you know, I'm not kind of shitting on Canada in this sense, but like I went to say universities up here, but it's like you get fans to go, but it's just not as big as a March Madness. So like when you see the universities down there for like every sport, I'm like, there's a part of me that wants to be involved in that, but then there's another part of me that's like, what if I'm trying to study? And the next minute outside, it's almost like, how are you not at this game? I'm just like, I'm sorry, I'm Canadian. I didn't really grow up with all this.
Yeah, it is interesting here because, you know, even you grow up like as kids, when
Yeah.
I wasn't even at Stanford yet, we went to all the games and had season tickets for years. And even actually when I was 6 years old, when Stanford was in the Final Four in Texas,
Oh,
went
wow.
flew to Texas and saw them play. Yeah.
Because yeah, it's like crazy because it's like I see things on like I'm not a big fan of TikTok, but like when we get accepted into universities now, I don't know how it is elsewhere, but it's like we don't really make such a big deal of it. You might see a Facebook post where it's like I got accepted into this university, not a big deal, but like they go nuts on TikTok of kind of teasing people for what they do because it's like one guy is making fun of girls for it's like I got accepted into like University of Texas, go blah blah blah, and he's just like, yeah, okay, like great. It's like, but it's like such a big deal down there. Like when you get someone that says they're going to Michigan State compared to Michigan, and it's like you can be like best friends for 20 years. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, that bitch went to Michigan, and I'm going to Michigan State. It's like, okay. It's like I'm sure once you're done your 4 or 5 years, not a big deal.
Yeah. There's definitely college rivalries.
Now you mentioned that you went to Stanford. I was really actually blown away with this because again, going into the music side of things, but you have 3 degrees, I believe, from Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
What was the 3 degrees in?
An undergrad in computer science, a master's in computer science, and MBA.
Really? Okay. So how did the music side come to be?
Yeah. So surprisingly, all of these were done with the intention of using them towards my music career, which everybody's like, wait, what? How does that make sense? But basically, I was a musician my whole life. So I felt like I had that down. I had my voice teachers. I played all these instruments. I had a band. I had music theory, all that stuff. So I was like, I don't need to get a degree in music. But I felt like for me, I knew since I was 3 years old that I wanted to be a performer and musician. But I sort of thought, what do I have that other musicians don't have? Because there's millions of talented artists. How do you differentiate? And I felt like actually getting the business side down would be, some skills that I have that potentially set me apart from other musicians. So the pure computer science programming, I don't really use, I will say. I do love computer science, but my undergrad was focus of computer science was in graphics. I use that all the time. Video edit, I edit my own music videos, Photoshop, photography, all of that kind of stuff, graphic design, all the time. I mean, literally with the last few weeks getting ready for my song release has been so much creating graphics and videos. My master's in computer science, I was able to take, I also, and undergrad, was able to take a lot of computer music classes. So Stanford has a department called the Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics, CARMA for short. And it's basically a whole professional recording studio on campus. And you can take classes there and learn production and mixing and how to use the studio and miking techniques and even coding your own plugins and things like that. So all of that is super, super relevant. And then the MBA is more the pure business side, but branding and marketing and all of that kind of stuff sort of. So it actually all really ties in, and I use all of those sort of business and more computer type skills all the time, just as much as I use my pure music skills.
Yeah, because I mean, especially in the world that we live in now, where it's almost like if I'm coming from the standpoint, so I have a communications degree, but it's like when we were first getting into journalism and the way the world is changing, at one point it used to be you could have a journalist and a cameraman. And, if you're in like I guess like an NBC or an ABC, like maybe they still do that. But like if you're just starting off, they want you to be like the cameraman, the editor, all this at once. And I was just like, damn, like that's a lot of things that you want me to do. So I guess in the world now where it's like, we want you to release your music. We have people that can do the graphics and stuff for you, but it's like, I feel more comfortable if I'm in control of what I'm putting out. And you see that a lot more because I was talking about this with a friend the other day of when I was younger, you'd go to MySpace and that's basically like, that's how you get in touch with acts. And it kind of created a different whole mindset in my mind. I'm like, was the act the one actually responding or was it a social media person? They were like, well, you got to think back then, this social media idea or having a PR person was not really there. So if you sent an email to, I'll use the relevant one of like, it just say if Halsey had a MySpace back then, it's probably Halsey replying to you. But now today, if you go to her Instagram and someone's replying, you're like, I don't think that's Halsey. I know she uploaded a picture 5 seconds ago, but I don't think that was her actually doing that. Like,
Yeah.
so like kudos to you for being able to do that, because, you know, now if you go into these meetings or like, if people are telling you like, I want to use this graphic for this picture, or, and you're just like, actually, here's my idea. I like this. Where I feel like some artists are like, I don't really like that idea, but I can't really tell them what I want because it's all up here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think also just, I mean, everyone's heard horror stories of, you know, musical artists getting taken advantage of and business wise and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's just like, it's valuable to have. It's definitely, I like the fact that I have these skills.
Yeah, like I mean, the examples that I kind of think of when you mention that is like, you know, Taylor Swift's battle with, of course, like re-releasing stuff, and I'm like, okay, she's winning that one, and then of course we have the Free Britney, where it's almost like, are you serious? Like, are you kidding me? You're telling me that somehow this person still has all the control? Like, it's not like she's 16. She's clearly like, I mean, at worst, if you did give her the full control of her life and then she just blows her money on stuff, I'm like, I don't think she will, because I think she has kids. I think she's well grounded, but it just sucks that that is the situation. So like, if you get it young, or you start getting these skills at like a younger age, or going to university and developing them, it's kind of like you're getting more levels.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, of speaking about your new song that was released, I believe it was like Tuesday. Was it Tuesday? Yeah. How has the feedback been so far for that? And give me a little bit of insight of why the wedding kind of music video. Because when I was doing a little bit of research on the bio, and I like people who maybe do their own bios or like have it up there, because it was almost like my perception of it from reading it is almost like, in your music, the woman is not the victim. It's like they're the ones taking control. And I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much, you know, into the theme of women empowerment. Very much want to use my music. You know, I've had a lot of various, you know, crazy experiences in my life, and I hope that, you know, I am a storyteller, and I hope that I can share my stories and hopefully empower other young women to, you know, to feel less alone, you know, with whatever they're going through. So Taking Back My Life is a song I released last Tuesday. And I mean, the song sort of tells the story better than I even could, I think, here. But yeah, I was engaged for 2.5 years, and it was a very toxic situation, and very difficult. And again, listen to the song, that'll tell you all the details. But the original wedding date was July 20th. And so I thought, what better way to release, and, you know, and the song it is not just about taking back your life just for a wedding. It's about taking back your life in general. But for me specifically, the situation I'm going through right now is taking my life back, and from the future that I had planned, and this wedding that I had planned, and having to kind of heal from the past and forge ahead and create a new future for myself. And so the graphic that goes along with the song is me in a wedding dress on fire, and that represents me burning
the past,
burning the past / burning the future that I had planned. And that's the theme behind the song. Again, the song is not specific just to weddings. It's, I think, for anyone who's been in a toxic situation and needs to heal. And I, you know, found myself in a very broken state after this situation. It was very, very difficult and traumatic. And I felt like the first step in taking back my life was to take back this day by releasing the song. And it was a difficult day for me. And instead I was able to flip it to make it be a positive. And, you know, there's more healing to be done, obviously, but hopefully anybody who's ever had a toxic situation or a difficult breakup or whatever, take back your life, and you got to kind of try to come out strong despite the trauma.
Yeah. Now, did you say you were engaged for, was it 2 years?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. I like, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, so feel free. Like, I'm not that type of interview, but just because you mentioned it, it's like so 2.5 years, it was like a toxic relationship. Like, what made you kind of either stick around or finally had the melting point of just going like, I'm done here. Like, this is over.
The wedding was scheduled and then called off and then scheduled, and ups and downs and all sorts of drama that would if you have 5 hours, I can tell you all of it. No, but I think I got to a point where I was like, this is unhealthy for me. I was having health issues, literally like stomach issues from the stress, and
Wow.
living in a constant stressed, panicked state, and it wasn't healthy. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, this is like the last deadline, like to either like get married or not. I'm not going to just be engaged I'm not going to find myself 5 years from now still engaged, and more toxicity and drama happened, and then that was sort of the final straw, just in the last few months. And then at least the silver lining as an artist is I can take difficult experiences and put them into my music. So
Oh yeah, and I mean it's interesting because the only reason I kind of brought that up is because if there are people out there that listen to this like in real time or later, and they could be in those same situations, and it's almost like, okay, they're at a crossroads of like, do I stay in this relationship? Do I not? But a lot of artists like yourself use real life experiences for those purposes, and sometimes you get like really good music or really good songs out of that because people can relate to that more than someone just coming out and be like, it was a sunny day, everything's great. It's like, but did you really feel like it was a sunny day and everything's great? Like, no, but I wrote the lyrics and I thought it was cool. But like, you get a whole fan base that can relate to, I don't know, like when I was growing up, Pink was a big like I grew up with like Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, where it was almost like it's like all the boys want me, and I'm just like, okay, but what if all the boys don't want you? Where's that artist too? And then Pink was almost like, I don't give a fuck if you want me or not. It's like, I am Pink. If you don't like it, cool. I was like, I don't know if I should be listening to this, but I'm like, I kind of dig it, so I'm gonna like. And then that inspires like a whole other generation too. Like we have in Canada here, Alanis Morissette, who is kind of like the big deal. So I know it's like early, like 90s reference there, but at the same point, it's like you didn't see a lot of women first, like in your TV, I guess at first, that were like, no, I'm not okay with that. Like I can do whatever the fuck I want to. It's like, oh, okay. Like, don't mess with her.
And I like to kind of try to spin difficult situations into a more empowering message too. Cause there's also the avenue of, I could have written a song of poor me, I'm so sad.
Yeah.
Everyone feels sorry for me. And, which of course I feel that at times, but I think for me, I'm more interested in trying to inspire people that if they are feeling in that state to be like, try to take back your life. And I don't, the truth is I don't feel like I've fully have taken my life back all the way. It's still, as I said, a healing process, but it's sort of like, it's, taking steps to take my life back every day. And my song helps me actually stay grounded in what happened, and remind myself to stay strong as well. And it's helpful for me. So I hope it's helpful for other people who may be experiencing similar things.
No, absolutely. Now, did you grow up watching like the TV show Friends?
You know what? I actually didn't watch it until like over the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
But I did watch all of it like a year ago and loved it.
Yeah, because I was going to mention like not to like be mean about it, but it's like there's like a scene that I always remember where it was like Rachel's mom is like always being attached to Rachel, and like I think it's like one episode because she wants to like be young again, and then Rachel like totally flips out at her and goes like you can't do that, and she's like, no, the difference is I didn't marry my Barry, or like you're not going to marry your Barry, but I married my Barry. And like when you were younger, you're like, what the hell does that even mean? But then when you're older, you're like, oh shit, she's more or less saying like, you didn't marry your mistake, but it's not, I guess not the mistake, but it's like I did marry that. So and I guess it makes sense because in my mind, for some reason, I just thought of like Ross and Monica's parents. So I was just like, no, they were fine. They were fine. But yeah, actually, speaking of like the pandemic and mentioning Friends, you said you caught up on that. Like, what other shows or things did you do during the pandemic to kind of keep you distracted besides like putting your head in the pillow and being like, ooh?
I know. Yeah. I mean, how crazy it's been a year and a half. Thank goodness it's at least where I am. We're pretty soon to be out of it, seem to be making progress. I mean, yeah, I will say it was tough as it was on everybody, especially, the music industry obviously is one of the industries that got hit really hard, and that, all tours canceled. 2020 was supposed to be a big touring year for me. I actually, the last show I played was March 11th, 2020. I played at House of Blues San Diego, and literally the next day, everything got canceled. So that was tough. I tried to stay as productive as I could, though, to be honest. And I love live performing. That's my passion. Couldn't do any of that, but shifted focus to trying to focus on social media and I did a lot of Zoom co-writing sessions, which, you know what, I actually really like, because I used to travel all the time to go and work and write with different people in person, which is still great and I still love. But, we found ourselves in this pandemic. And so my managers would set up Zoom writing sessions, and I actually really like them. I feel like they work well. All of the songs I've released in the last year were written on Zoom, some with producers and writers that I've never even met in person. But I did a lot of that, and it works really well. I'm here in my home studio. I have a setup. Obviously, if you don't have a setup, it doesn't really work. But we'd sign on Zoom and just write in the same way that you would write if you were in person. The only difference being you can't sing at the same time because of latency.
Yeah.
But when we work on a song and then the producers would send me a track, I'd record my vocals, send it to them, and just sort of go back and forth that way. But one of the things that I really liked about it is I feel like, in a way, you have a little more flexibility with the writing. When you're writing in person, it's okay. Everybody is either, driven or flown in. You're in this room, and there's very much a pressure to, we better finish this song and we have it perfect by the end of the day. And that's that. On Zoom, you have a little more flexibility to start something and then, go take a break and come back an hour later, or even take a song and be like, like, we've been working for a couple hours, like, we're a little off. It's not quite sitting right. Let's just pause and come back next week and work on it some more. And actually, taking back my life, I started writing. I wrote with Andrew Dixon, who's amazing. Loved working with him. And we wrote the song on Zoom, and then got vaccinated, pandemic opening up again, went down to LA. And then we felt like we needed to redo the verses. So then we brought another writer who helped us, and we reworked the verses. And then I recorded it all down there in his studio. So that was kind of a fun one. That was sort of a hybrid Zoom / in-person. But yeah, I like the Zoom sessions. I like in person too, but I'm hoping that the Zoom stuff that some of it will carry over. So I did a lot of that over the pandemic, practicing singing and playing. And I work a lot. I work on music kind of constantly.
I like that you mentioned about the Zoom sessions, because we've had a number of acts on, even in the Canadian artists, that said the same thing. Like, they're like, we really enjoyed the Zoom sessions. We didn't know how it was going to work, but I guess there's always like a comfort of being in your own home as well. And like, then being able to take breaks, not feeling like, geez, we flew in, like you said, we flew in, you feel pressured to get it done because it's a time restraint. But when you're at home, you're kind of like, yeah, it's like, I'm just getting something to eat there now, but yeah, I'll send it over when I get this done, or blah, blah, blah. I'll get that. Where I feel like if you were in, like, everyone's gathered in Nashville or LA, and it's like, actually, I'm going out to get something at McDonald's, and I'll be back to, like, who does she think she is? Like, we're trying to write here.
Yeah. And it's also fun because you can work with people that you wouldn't normally work with. So Alex Reed was my co-writer and producer for my previous 2 songs, Deep Breaths and Wasted Goodbye. And he lives in Toronto. So I've never met him in person either. But that's another one where it's I probably wouldn't have written with him because I wouldn't have had a reason to fly away to Canada. But with Zoom, we can work together, and it's great.
When you said you were like into music at a young age, I believe I've written it down here. And just to confirm, it was like at age 2, I believe you were like interested in learning the violin. Violin, and then you got into the piano, and then you mastered, I think it was like guitar and drums as well.
A lot of stuff.
Like,
music is,
but like, see, at age 2, I don't even remember what I'm doing at age 2, but I'm assuming that it was just basically like trying to learn about life, or like figure out, who is my parents right now? Like, are you like, what's going on? So what made you at 2 years old be like, violin? Because people want to learn piano, guitar when they're a little bit older, but violin to me just seems like out there.
So I'll say, first of all, my mom used to play violin, so I'm sure probably there was something there. I don't really remember, but what I do remember is I heard when I was 2, I heard the Four Seasons by Vivaldi,
Okay.
You probably know that song. And I was like, I want to play the violin. And my mom said no. And I just badgered her for a full year. And then when I turned 3, she was like, fine, probably just to shut me up, and found a teacher who I worked with for, 20 plus years. I don't take violin lessons
Oh,
anymore.
wow.
Worked with her my whole life. And she was amazing. And she was willing to take on a 3-year-old. So my mom would drive me 30 minutes each way twice a week for 2 15-minute lessons a week, because that was the only attention span I had. I had like a little tent size violin. There are pictures of me as a tiny little kid. And what's funny is I just wanted to play the 4 seasons. So I went and tried and was just like trying to play it by ear. I wasn't yet at 3 years old at the level where I could play the full seasons, but my teacher made a modified, easier version. And so sort of over the years, she would modify it more and more until I eventually played all the seasons for real. And then so I started violin when I was 3. And then when I was 4, I would just sort of sing in my preschool. My teacher, Beth, would sing, and she had the guitar. I'd sing. And then when I was 5, I decided I wanted to play piano. And then when I was 6, I started writing. I was in 1st grade, and I considered this to be my first band. We were called the Backstreet Girls, and we would sing Backstreet Boys songs, but also write our own. Like, I actually still remember some of these songs that I wrote when I was 6. I mean, they're not great, but and then kind of years later, I ended up also playing viola in a symphony, which was great, and then adding guitar and drums sort of eventually. And I also collected musical instruments from different countries. So I have like 25 different instruments or something. But I mean, basically, I think music was just my passion from day one. I just loved it. And that's, when you say, what have you been doing for the pandemic? It's like, I just play music. Like in my free time, I do other things too, but it's just fun. It's what last night, Friday night, I was up till, midnight just singing and practicing. It's just what I like to do. So.
Yeah, I think it's funny because when you were mentioning about being the Backstreet Girls, it's like, were you a big Backstreet Boys fan?
I'm a big boy band person. So yes, I love the Backstreet Boys for sure. I still love them. They're great.
Yeah. Because when I was younger, it was almost like you were getting either teased at school if you were a boy and like the Backstreet Boys, or it's like you'd have people come up to you that's like, even if you were a guy and someone else is like, I like them too. I was like, oh, that's great. And then it's like, okay. And then they're like, yeah, but how do you feel about NSYNC? I'm like, oh, great. Like, this is a double-edged road, because like I like NSYNC too. And they're like, well, you can't like both. I'm like, you can like whatever you want. And I stand by that, because if you listen to like 2021, what is AJ doing? AJ's teamed up with some of the remaining members of NSYNC. So it's almost like, are we going to get like BNSYNC or like, Backstreet NSYNC? Like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if they come out with like tours or concerts and shit or whatever they're doing. But at the same point, like, you tell that to a 90s kid back in the day, if you took a time machine, you're like, these two bands, they're going to team up at some point. You're like, really? There's going to be like Nick and Justin? Oh, no. Nick and Justin won't be there because they don't want to be. But the rest of those members, they're best friends, and they're going to team up, and you're just like, oh, go to hell. You're like, no, wait for it.
Can you imagine, though, Backstreet Boys NSYNC tour or something?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be mind-blowing. That'd be amazing.
I feel like there's like I feel like there's a generation of 80s and 90s kids that maybe more 80s kids, but it's like when it was like New Kids on the Block, BSB, and they did a song, and I think they were doing tours together. I'm like, okay, as a 90s kid, I get the Backstreet Boys. I wasn't around for the New Kids on the Block, but I'm sure an 80s kid might be the same thing, where it's like, yeah, Backstreet Boys are just a mimic of New Kids on the Block. And I'm like, all right, but apparently they're both teaming up. Like, that sounds great to me. Like, I'm waiting for a day, and it probably won't come until like you're 70. And I don't know how old these people would be, but it's like a whole 90s band. Like, when they do like 80s and 70s tours of bands.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. They're going to have like Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Britney Spears, at this point, hopefully free, Christina Aguilera. And you're just going to be like, why couldn't you do this in the 90s? Like, because they were making more money on themselves, like, than they do here. And then you're like, well, is she going to do Genie in a Bottle? It's like, yeah, she will. It's like, well, geez, I really hope that she just sings the song and doesn't do dance moves, because I don't want to break her hip at this point.
Oh my God, that's so fun. I love that. Yeah, I believe my very first ringtone on my very first cell phone was Larger Than Life.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Awesome.
I
I
love
think
that.
like my first memory of like obviously like music videos is I would get up to go to school and we would turn on Much Music, and it was around the 8:15, 8:20 mark. And you're supposed to be in school like 8:30, but my aunt was always late.
Mhm.
So shout out to my aunt if she listens. But uh, it's almost like 8:20, they would start showing like the more recent music videos. I think as long as it's like as long as you love me
Mhm.
or I want it that way. And I was just like, then you'd get the person at the car going beep beep. I'm like, really? It's like the music video just started. I'm gonna miss it. And like on sick days from school, they would have on Much Music like new video alert at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I'm like, who is this for? Like, who's home at 2 or 3
Yeah.
going to see this music video? Why don't you premiere it at like 6 or 7 at night? But I feel like it's a lost cause now because if you told like my niece or nephew that's 6 or 7, like, hey, like back in our day, we had to wait around for a music video to be like released, and they're like, I'm just gonna go to YouTube and see if it's on right now, and
Yeah.
I'm like, turn it off. Not the same.
So true.
I want to ask though as well, outside of music, what other interests? Like I know you said during the pandemic you were keeping busy during music, but was there other things outside of music that you were doing? Like were you active with different sports? Because I know, come on, it's California. I'm guessing there's a lot of things to do in nice weather.
Yeah, so I'm a golf. I used to play on the Stanford golf team back in the day. So I'm a golfer. I don't play competitively anymore, but I do play for fun. So that's obviously that's a great thing for California is good weather and golf. So um, yeah, I mean, I play a lot less than I used to back in the day when it was 20 hours of practice a week. But I do, yeah, I play golf. What else was I doing? I mean. I wasn't leaving the house really. I will say I was on the extreme end of the real careful about COVID spectrum.
Yeah.
Just as a singer, I was like, I'm not risking my lungs getting damaged from COVID. Also, I mentioned my kind of like stomach health issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
My grandma, I spent a good chunk of COVID just with my family, and my grandma's 92, so my whole family was strict lockdown. I was not going anywhere. Well, I split time also between in Tahoe as well, in Nevada. So I
Okay.
was kind of split. I was able to go between the Bay Area and Tahoe because it's just a drive. So I wasn't flying anywhere, but I was able to, drive and not get out of the car or anything till I get there. So was able to do some of that. And, Tahoe is beautiful. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a beach lake in the summer and skiing in the winter. So
Okay.
I also did a lot of skiing in the winter, which was really fun because that was one of the kind of few COVID safe things you could do in the winter. You're on the ski slopes, everybody's in like full, ski gear, mask, helmet, everything. It's all outside. There's wind. So you're not getting COVID on the ski slopes. So
Yeah.
did a lot of the skiing as well. Which is really fun. So I don't get snow in California, but I do get it in
Well,
Nevada.
yeah, like you get to experience it. I guess my a question, just because like I'm big on Christmas, and like up here Christmas, of course, you get snow. So like growing with, I guess you have Christmas with California, but like have you ever experienced a Christmas with snow, or like where like when you see movies, obviously like when they have Hallmark movies and shit on, and it's like you
Yeah.
see the snow, do you almost feel like at Christmas time where it's like I'd like to experience that?
You know what? I've never, other than I spent Christmas in the UK one year. But besides that, I've spent Christmas in California with my family every single year. So I've never experienced a snowy Christmas, but
Oh,
I
really?
have since moving to Tahoe
Yeah.
around before or after Christmas. I experienced it, just not on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I know it's like it's kind of weird to mention because it's like it's a summer
Yeah.
vibe here, but it's like with because we don't. I guess it's not a lot of times that you get like California accent, obviously. But I want to ask, like, do you guys put up Christmas trees? Like, how do you celebrate Christmas?
Oh yeah, I love
Oh,
Christmas. It's
okay.
great. Yeah.
I was gonna say like it seems like such a like a wintry tradition to put up a Christmas tree, but I guess I was figuring like, oh, they're gonna put up like a pine tree or like.
Oh no, we do Christmas. My family's not religious, so we celebrate it not in a religious sense, but we
Yeah.
love Christmas. So yeah, we do a Christmas tree, and we all decorate we have a ton of ornaments, ton of ornaments. My brother and my dad are always like, why do we put so many ornaments on the tree? And my mom and I are like, no, because it's so fun. So we do all of that, and what else do we, yeah, what, I don't know. We don't really have any real specific traditions, I guess, but you know, yeah, we celebrate Christmas, just presents and
Yeah, I feel like feel like some families, if they're like really religious, have traditions and stuff. And there's other ones that like you just keep traditions going for like, because I know I like to think we have traditions, but it's like almost like we have the stockings, you have maybe Christmas Eve, like the Christmas
we
Eve.
do. Yeah, I don't know. We don't. It's not that crazy or anything that we do. It's literally just like we have like another family friends that we'll often do like Christmas Eve dinner with. And then we'll just open stockings, open presents on Christmas morning. And then we always run our dogs. I have 3 collie dogs, so I've always had collies. So that's sort of part of our Christmas Day tradition is after we open presents and eat, we run the dogs outside and play with the dogs. And then that's kind of it. That's kind of it, I guess. It's not that, not that.
It's something, but it's not like an overly crazy tradition.
No.
I like how you mentioned, though, of course, like going, getting, I guess, a little bit of the winter aspect. But like I noticed on your Instagram, because when you were talking about skiing, like there are a few pictures that I'm kind of like, how is she not getting frostbitten? Like literally just in a bikini. They're just, and I've seen people do it, but at the same point, I'm just like, how do they not come back? And they're like, you were white when you went out. You are now blue.
That was spring. Yeah, that's spring skiing.
Okay.
Is warmer. Yeah, in the like heart of winter, I think it'd be too cold. Tahoe doesn't get too bad, I will say. Like we've had I don't know. It's not. I feel like there are other places like Utah that are a little cold. I mean, it gets cold sometimes as you go way up in the mountain, but spring skiing especially, it can get really hot. I actually felt quite hot a couple of the skiing days because you did have to wear a mask. Wearing a mask while you're skiing in the spring can get hot. So I was actually fine in the bikini.
No, because I like, again, like just seeing, like you don't get the context, you just see the picture. And I've seen people that I've gone to school with, and then I'm just like, where in Canada are you going? That's not like, I'm not saying that we always have cold weather, but you're like, come on. So to me, when I seen it, I was just like, who does this?
That was like in the literally the final week before ski season ended. So warmest time of the year for skiing.
To each their own. I want to ask too, because of course, when you were mentioning about getting involved in all these instruments when you were younger, like what made you then decide to go into getting the guitar and drums? Because to me, like I've always liked the idea of playing an instrument, similar to you. Now I wasn't writing songs at 6, maybe at like 12 or 14, where I was like, oh, well, now I'm actually starting to feel different experiences. But I made the joke of I could write a song, but I'd never be able to play it. And they're like, well, what do we do? And I'm like, well, I guess I'm just going to do some slam poetry. So like, what made you design or like get into these different other instruments? Because was it just like you seen someone else pick one up one day and you're like, you know what, I'd like to learn that? Or again, coming with the tech savviness of, I want to be able to do it all. Was that your approach?
Yeah, I think probably both in a way. I mean, number one, I love instruments, so I kind of want to be able to play everything. And I think, guitar, I would say probably for guitar, it was more of and I'm like definitely a far better pianist than I am guitarist, because I've played I love the piano. I play it every day and whatever. But the guitar, I think I felt like I should know how to play the guitar as a singer.
Yeah.
Good. So that's sort of and so I had a guitar for a number of years that I sort of like self-taught a bit. And then at Stanford took some guitar lessons as well to just improve. So that was good guitar. Drums was interesting. Drums, I hadn't ever really thought of playing drums, but during probably my, sophomore or junior year at Stanford, they brought in a drum teacher, Aretha Franklin's drummer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
His name's David Rokeach. He's amazing, to teach drum lessons. And I think my brother actually somehow was interested. And then I was like, wait, I don't know anything about the drums. And also, as a person that I don't consider myself a professional producer by any means, but I do some production. But I felt like I didn't really know. I had the sort of melodic instruments down, but I had no background in drums or sort of rhythm stuff. And so I thought this would be so cool. And I had, as a young person, I'd come upon a drum kit here and there, and I'd hit it, but I did not know anything. And so I was thrilled when I saw that Stanford had drum lessons. I thought this is the coolest thing. So just started taking drum lessons, not ever thinking that, oh, I'm going to now be a drummer, but I thought it'd be fun to learn and something that potentially could be interesting to add in the future for, who knows, if you're on tour, maybe you sit down and drum for one of your songs. I don't know. I thought it could be kind of fun. I just thought it'd be fun, and it was, and I love the drums. It's great. It's a
Have you ever, like, I guess it's kind of an interesting concept. Now, I don't know if he was the creator of it, but I'll give him credit for it. And I might butcher the name, or I could say it wrong, but it's like when you watch like an Ed Sheeran play and the amount of stuff that he plays, and then he does the whole, like, I think it's like the loop pedal or whatever it is. And then like you see him do like one bit of stuff, and then you're like, okay, like I get it. You can play the guitar. Okay, I get it. You can do this. And then when he pieces it all together, and then I'm just like, man, like how long does that take you to master? And then number two, where do you just come up with that of like, I'm going to learn to do this? Because I think I've seen him do, I think it was like Shape of You. Now I haven't kept up with a lot of social media stuff, so I'm sure there's other ones that he's put out, but like I just watched him do the loop pedal part, then put in the vocals and all this in real time, right? And I was just like, that's crazy. I feel like if you're working with Ed Sheeran, it's almost like, I'll produce your song for you. It's like, no, I will produce my song for me. I'm like, okay, good, Ed, fine. Have you ever thought of that though? Like ever taking up another thing of like the loop pedal?
I have a pedal for my electric violin. So
yeah.
Which I've played with. I've played with it some, not to Ed Sheeran's level of that, but you know what? Maybe that's my next thing to master.
That's the next project to keep you like, busy. But I'd love to see it where you're just like, even if you like, because obviously we're in a world now where social media can be both beneficial and a downfall depending on like who interacts with you. But I would just love to see it if you were like, all right, all you people know how Ed Sheeran does the loop pedals. Like, here's my attempts. And then like your first few, maybe year of doing it, people are like, man, it's like, that's not great. But then like after a year of doing it, you're like, here's where I started. Here's what I'm to now. And then you're just like, okay, like shit, like great. Because there are some that it's weird on social media that people won't really post their lows. And I get it, but it's almost at the same point where there's a younger generation, younger than myself, that they just like soak into social media like a sponge. So but they don't understand that there are people that have lows. It's like if you see everyone's high, like just say for yourself, if you're coming out and telling me this is how many streams my song got today, awesome. And then like 4 weeks later, it's like, check out my new album, awesome. It's like, you don't know in that like 4 week span if there was some bad things that happened that she's just not posting, but all you're seeing is highs. So obviously you're thinking is like, Jesus, all she does is hit it out of the park. It's like, no, like not everyone hits it out of the park, but there's a generation out there of social media where it's like, I don't see any lows. So I feel like all they're doing is win.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have lows too. Don't usually post it on social media, but
my goal is just so that if there are people out there that feel that way, because I felt that way when I see friends from high school, and then you might see a post every few months, but all it is wins. Like it's like got a new house, it's like getting married, and I'm like, okay, but what happened in those 3 months? Like, not that I'm encouraging bad behavior, but it's like, why didn't you post something for like 3 months? So I basically do the anti thing of like, it's like, here's an interview I did where my mic dropped, or it's like I lost my mic. So here's to show other podcasters or other people out there, like things happen. It's like roll with it.
I mean, in a sort of different way, I sort of feel like my recent song was a little bit of that, where it's like, hey, like, my wedding is not happening here. World,
here's something that was bad, but I'm going to turn it into a positive.
Yeah.
I want to ask too, because I know we were talking about your music side of things and a little bit of the interest. I want to ask you, like, who are some acts or musicians that you grew up listening to or inspired you to get into music? Because I know everyone, depending on their career path they take, whether you're like a late night host, a comedian, you had to have somebody in your life that you're like, you know what, I want to do that someday. So like, who is your kind of go-tos?
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I think I've been someone who really I have a very wide range of musical interests. And so on the one hand, there's Antonio Vivaldi from
Yeah.
Violin, right? And then on the other hand, Backstreet Boys. As I said, I mean, Backstreet Boys
Put them together.
but they were probably the first, you know, pop act. That's where I fell in love with pop music, was the Backstreet Boys, because I love a super catchy, upbeat pop song with a like really, really catchy chorus that you just jump up and down and dance
Oh
to.
yeah.
That is what I love. So I will credit the Backstreet Boys for being the first ones to get me to fall in love with pop music. But I also really like ABBA, for example. Like, I'm definitely big fan of their style of music. And I also listen to country music. And so it's just a really, and I also love musical theater. So I would say the Backstreet Boys Vivaldi was the first music at all. The Backstreet Boys were the first pop. But then growing up, I listened to all sorts of, Britney Spears as well. And and then obviously eventually Taylor Swift. And nowadays it's Dua Lipa and Ava Max and some of these other artists. So I just think that I'm someone that I just love music. So I just listen to a lot of music in a wide range kind of throughout my whole life.
Yeah, like I like how you mentioned, of course, like the Backstreet Boys, all these different acts that you grew up with. And like you said, Ava Max was the one that I feel like she's going to be on the rise. I feel like she's going to be like a next breakout star. But I found that even when her Instagram ads come up, it's like, geez, you kind of have to love or hate your audience at points, because if you're already on the rise and people know you, it's like most times there's like no comments, or the comments are very positive. I looked at a few of Ava Max's ones, and like Sweet But Psycho is fine, Kings and Queens. But there's another one where it's like, I'm Not Your Barbie Girl, and like you read the comments, it's like, oh, this is a ripoff from like Aqua, blah blah blah. I'm like, all right, like maybe I'm not a fan of that song either, but I don't know why did you leave that there? Like, do you find on your videos, like, I guess most of the time it's positive because there are people that follow you, but have you ever had like a weird comment that you're like, what, who is this for?
I had a very weird experience. Yeah. Shockingly, I mostly get nice people, which I'm happy about. I'm sure as the numbers grow, that will change because people like to be mean. But the most bizarre experience I had many years ago, I released an EP called Colors. And there was this, like, I knew someone that was part of this like exercise equipment company that basically they had this open month of just basically if I wanted to have my music featured on exercise equipment, I could for free. And I was like, cool, this is awesome. So I randomly get this opportunity. And it was, I have all these pictures of my EP artwork on exercise equipment in various gyms, 24-hour fitness and Gold's Gym.
Yeah.
Anyways. And so this guy like tweets, his name was Tanner. I remember it. I get this tweet from this guy, Tanner, who like posted pictures like, this is awesome. How, like, what fun advertising. And I'm like, oh, hey, thanks. Like, appreciate, like, thank you for the picture. This is awesome. I haven't even seen it. So, and then somehow like the artist that took over for the next month didn't provide artwork for like the home page or something. So all of my stuff went away, but it was still my face blowing sequins on the home screen, this exercise equipment. And somehow that just ended up staying there for a number of months. So this guy then eventually is really mad at having to see my face on his exercise equipment. So then he starts tweeting all this like mean stuff about how he like, this is horrible that I have to see my face on the exercise equipment all the time and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm really sorry. It actually was only supposed to be a month. Like, can I send you a free CD? And then but that was probably the weirdest experience where it's like, went from like, this is so great to like, get off my exercise equipment.
Yeah. It's almost like it's nice that it's here and like, it's great for this one time, but now it's all the time. Like, no, it's like, I look at it from the standpoint of like, if you buy like a 7-Up or a Mountain Dew and like for the month they're advertising, just say like, now I like the guy, but just say they advertise like John Oliver. And it's like the bottle has changed color just because it's John Oliver month or whatever. And you're like, okay, cool. And then like a year later, you're like, really? It's like, can you not anymore? Like, it was great it was great for a time being. It's like, I grew up with like blue Pepsi and red Mountain Dew. And I was like, that's great. But then they had the whole contest with Mountain Dew. And then I was like, oh, they're going to bring back Code Red. They don't bring back Code Red. But then like months later, it's like, remember all those other ones that you didn't vote for? You know, there was a lot of people that liked them. So we're going to put them out anyway. I'm just like, that's great. But there were still people like, no, we had the contest that lost. Why are you bringing them all back? I'm like, maybe because people liked them. It's like American Got Talent or American Idol. It's like the winners don't always do well, but yet you have like runner-ups or people that are out in like round top 10 and they go farther. It's like the examples I don't know if these people won, but it's like the examples I give is like Daughtry, Carrie Underwood, Kelly Clarkson. I'm just like, okay, some of those are winners, but some of those didn't win, and yet you wouldn't be able to tell the difference because they're all in music.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want to ask that too to you because just from the American side of things, like, you know, to gain exposure for your music side or like your music career, have you ever kind of even thought of that, of like going on like an America's Got Talent or anything? Like, I know you already have that, but it's almost like, geez, as a PR point of view, you'd be like, well, maybe this could give me a little bit more exposure. But I guess the downfall is if Simon or something's like, I don't get it, I don't know why you're here. You're like, oh my God. It's like, I am a professional singer.
Yeah. I have thought of it. I haven't thought a lot about it or put a whole lot of time into it, but I've pondered and haven't pursued. Yes. Yeah. But it seems like an interesting possibility.
Yeah. Like, cause it's the double-edged sword where it's almost like, if you don't do well, it's almost like, how do I tell them that I'm already a singer? But then it's social media where people will probably be like, I knew that show was kind of stupid because she already is a singer and you're telling her that she's not a singer. Like,
I don't know. Hey, maybe I'll look into it. We'll see.
Oh yeah. You can be like when they actually show you on the TV, it's like, I was on this Newfoundland podcast in Canada and this guy challenged me to do this. So that's when I'm here. So at least then you have an out. You have an out. You're like, you're like, if I don't advance, I can just be like, listen, buddy challenged me. I already know that I'm talented. Like, leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly. All right, it's a plan. I love it.
That's gonna do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Audriix for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.